Does this, you first wanted to be a performer?
Yeah, and I've done a lot of clubs where heckling from the audience is de rigueur, and so I often found that that was the best part of my act.
You were best at that.
There was a gangster's girlfriend one night. I didn't know she was a gangster's girlfriend, and I thought the audience was laughing inordinately. They all did somehow in a club in the village, which is now gone. And I thought, this is great, but it's hard to get back to your act when you've done your done ad-lib stuff and had it work. So actors are somewhat in awe of this thing, I must say, and they will say, I don't know how you go out there. Actors you've seen win Academy Awards.
This thing that you're doing at the Circle Square.
How could you go out there and not know what you're going to get every night? Well, some of it's fun. Some of it's a great deal of fun.
Do you expect to use this, in a sense, as an entree back to stand-up? Or as an incentive back to stand-up?
That's a sensible question, and more so than the way my mind works, because I hadn't really thought of it that way. But I know when it's going well, like at the beginning of the second act, I come out and do another bit, just plain me and the audience. I think, why would anybody ever do anything else? I got to get back into this somehow. You know?
So you might.
I get that feeling there.
You will consider it.
I suppose I might. For you, I will consider it, and because it is, at its best, a delight that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah. You came to it rather quickly. Once you started performing, you got on television quickly, which was what all stand-ups, even today, want to do.
Well, I came along a little faster than usual, I think maybe because Jack Rollins, my legendary manager at that time, who used to find people like Nichols and May in little quiet places.
And Woody Allen.
And Woody and a whole lot of folks. Got me on things. He got me on What's My Line as a panelist when I was just a beginning comic. John Daly hated my guts, I learned years later. And
John Charles Daly did not like you?
Well, apparently not, because if you're old, any of your friends are old enough to remember What's My Line, you donned masks while a mystery celebrity came out. And I said, as they cut to me, I have a feeling the mystery guest is trying to figure out who I am. Well, this got a thunderous laugh, and apparently to the degree that everybody else enjoyed it, Mr. Daly didn't. I don't know, I've never met him.
And who was it, Mr. Daly?
It turned out it was Ed Sullivan. Ed Sullivan, and the applause he got went on forever. You would have thought it was the second coming. Years later, Jack also got me onto the Ed Sullivan Show before I had any right to be on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Roll tape. Here is a bite.
How convenient. How'd you do that?
And now, ladies and gentlemen, here is a young collegian from Yale, a very amusing young fella, very attractive, Dick Cavett. So let's bring Dick out.
Thank you. I heard Mr. Sullivan mention that I went to Yale, and I always hasten to add, when people hear that about me, that I come from Nebraska. And I always hurry to get that in, because I found that if you just say I went to Yale, a lot of people hate you, you know. But when you let them know you come from Nebraska, it seems to get their sympathy back. I don't know why that should be. But I went to Yale the embarrassing way. I went on a scholarship. And I say embarrassing because, you know, to get a scholarship, you don't have to prove you're a scholar anymore. You have to prove that you're poor. And that's a little unpleasant, you know, filling out the poverty form that they send you and picking out a gaunt photograph to send in and anything to beat out the other poor people. And in my case, proving poverty was absurdly easy because my father's a school teacher. And, and when I was born during the Depression, he was only making $900 a year. So my mother was helping out by taking in washing off people's clotheslines at night.
Sitting in the audience, you just told me, was Woody Allen.
Woody was sitting there because Mr. Sullivan was going to make one of his graceful introductions from the audience. And Woody would get up and Ed Sullivan would say, "This is Woody. His play is called Don't Drink the Water, and it's on Broadway." It was an audience plug from a stand-up on Sullivan, it was called, or a sit-up, I forget which. By the way, I should say, Charlie, a thing that always bothered me about Ed Sullivan was his total lack of instincts for show business. And I think it was part of his secret.
Because people...
Yeah, when they came along, they'd say, "Gee, look how awkward and dull he is. That's just the way I'd probably look if I tried to get out there and speak in public." And say, here's a young lady who's starving on Broadway when he meant starring on Broadway and that kind of stuff.
You loved Fred Allen?
Yes, I did.
Was it timing? Was it wit? Was it...
I don't know if you can ever add up with the truly greats. Well, of course, you can list certain things. God knows he had the ones you mentioned, and there are quite a few more. Often, it's the distinct sound. I don't think enough's been written about that. We all know Jack Benny's voice was recognizable, that Fred Allen's was, Gleason's was. And among the magnetisms that they had was that great sound. In Groucho's case, it became such that virtually everything he said was comic because he said it in a certain way.
You met Groucho at the Campbell Funeral Home, is that right?
Yes.
Whose funeral was it?
How do you find this stuff out?
I don't know. It's out there somewhere. Whose funeral?
It was the funeral of the great George S. Kaufman. And it was an interesting day in my life, or 24-hour period, because the night before I was sent by the Tonight Show, where I was still only a booker, secretly writing on the side. I think the statute of limitations has run out by now. Writing and giving stuff to Jack on the side. I was sent to the Blue Angel to see a young comic who in his teens had worked for Sid Caesar, and I thought, I want that guy to be my friend for life, whoever he is.
Woody Allen.
And I wrote down his name, Woody Allen. Went and saw him there. We talked afterwards. He said, it's awful about Kaufman being gone, isn't it? And I said, yeah. Let's go to his funeral. So we agreed to. But the day of, Woody decided not to, and I went in the side door, because it was full, sat down, and there was my God sitting
Groucho. 4
feet in front of me, seeing him in profile. And a little voice in me said, they can kill me now.
Now, why him?
Not sure entirely. It might have a lot to do with, well, of course I had been raised on him on the quiz show. I came to him backwards, the quiz show, and then the movies I discovered.
Right. And then the brothers.
And a whole generation had it that way. He embodied total intelligence and comedy and wit in a way that I don't know if anybody else has. I can't help noticing your hat.
I don't understand that. What's wrong with it?
It has curious little people on the top.
Well, I'll tell you, this is in deference to the golf tournament that's going on in the vast west part of America. No, and I wore this when I played golf, and it distracted the caddy from watching me play. I never could find the ball, except the one up here. They said I had plenty on the ball, but it was on my hat.
I understand.
Some colloquialism like that. How you been?
Good, I've been fine. It's nice to see you in New York.
I'm glad you're back on the air, and the proper time, too.
Yeah?
Not at 4 o'clock in the morning. Whenever I saw your show last year, I was eating oatmeal. That's what they call prime time in California. That isn't all they called it either. Well, you look fine, and this show's going to be a big hit because you're on at 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
A lot of people are going to watch it.
I'm on at 9 Central Time.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
And he had so many gifts. He wasn't just a cerebral comic who could sit there, because he could command a comedy musical hall, a musical stage. Perelman envied Groucho's genius for moving around a comedy stage and saying, I have no idea what it is, where it comes from, or how to do it. And his wit and his erudition, everything about it. He was just the most... And if he were here now, you would feel you'd known him for a long time. And after 5 words, he was just totally comfortable. And we probably would say, so are you mighty like a rose, Rose? Or do 1 or 2 awkward puns. And then just, there he was. He had it all.